Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, October 3rd, 2024, and you're listening to Alex's News. The temperature in Riverside is set to soar today, with a high of 101.2 degrees and a low of 75.5. Be sure to stay cool and hydrated in this intense heat. Coming up on Alex's News, we'll explore the legal strategies prosecutors are employing to challenge Trump's immunity defense. We'll also delve into the devastating Maui wildfire, examining how a fallen power line led to the deadliest blaze in the island's history. Finally, we'll look at the shipping industry's efforts to address its environmental impact and reduce emissions. Stay tuned for these stories and more on Alex's News. We begin with a significant development in the ongoing criminal case against former President Donald Trump. New evidence has emerged, and federal prosecutors are making serious accusations. For more on this, we turn to our political correspondent, Ethan. Ethan, what can you tell us about these new allegations?
Grace, this is a major update in the case against former President Trump. According to a recently unsealed court filing, federal prosecutors led by special counsel Jack Smith are accusing Trump of resorting to criminal acts after losing the 2020 presidential election. They argue that his actions were not official presidential duties, but rather private and criminal endeavors aimed at maintaining his grip on power.
That's quite a serious allegation, Ethan. Can you elaborate on what specific actions the prosecutors are referring to?
Certainly, Grace. The prosecutors have outlined several key allegations. First, they claim that Trump pushed false claims of voter fraud and initiated schemes to overturn the election results in 7 states where he was defeated. Second, they allege that he attempted to persuade former Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to certify the electoral votes on January 6, 2021. Lastly, they accuse Trump of engaging in unlawful actions with private co-conspirators to disrupt the electoral process through fraud and deceit.
These are indeed serious accusations. How does this relate to the issue of presidential immunity that we've heard so much about?
That's a crucial point, Grace. The prosecutors are arguing that these actions fall outside the scope of presidential immunity. As you may recall, a recent Supreme Court ruling granted former presidents broad immunity for core constitutional acts performed while in office. However, it limited the scope of this immunity for actions taken outside of official duties. The prosecutors are essentially saying that Trump's actions were driven by personal interests rather than official responsibilities, and therefore shouldn't be protected by presidential immunity.
I see. And who's overseeing this case, Ethan?
The case is being overseen by U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, who made this filing public with minor redactions. It's worth noting that a grand jury in Washington, D.C. has already indicted Trump for his role in the events leading to the January 6, 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol.
This case seems to have significant implications, especially given Trump's current political status. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely, Grace. This case is particularly noteworthy because Trump is currently the Republican nominee for the 2024 presidential election, which is just 216 days away. The release of this filing was made with the public's need to understand the court's eventual ruling on immunity in mind. It highlights the complexities of prosecuting a former president for actions taken while in office, especially in light of the recent Supreme Court decision in Trump v. United States 2024.
It sounds like this case could potentially face some delays. Is that correct?
You're right, Grace. As the case progresses, the court will need to conduct a detailed analysis of each allegation to determine whether it qualifies as an official or unofficial act. This process could potentially delay the prosecution and complicate the legal proceedings. It's a delicate balance between holding former presidents accountable and respecting the immunity granted for official acts performed while in office.
Thank you, Ethan, for that comprehensive update on this developing story. We'll be sure to keep our viewers informed as more details emerge.
You're welcome, Grace. We'll certainly be keeping a close eye on this case as it unfolds.
Thank you, Ethan. Now let's move on to our next story. We turn now to a follow-up on the devastating Maui wildfire that occurred last year. Joining us with the latest details is our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, what can you tell us about the official cause of this tragic fire?
Grace, After a thorough investigation, officials have officially determined that a downed power line was responsible for igniting the Maui wildfire on August 8, 2023. This fire, which claimed at least 102 lives, has been deemed the deadliest U.S. wildfire in over a century.
That's a staggering number of casualties, Chloe. Can you walk us through how the fire unfolded?
Certainly, Grace. According to the investigation conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, known as the ATF, and the Maui Fire Department, the wildfire actually occurred in two phases. The first phase began early in the morning when a power line from Hawaiian Electric fell near utility pole number 25 off Lahaina Luna Road. Firefighters responded and believed they had extinguished the fire by 2:18 p.m.
But clearly, that wasn't the end of it. What happened next?
That's right, Grace. At about 2:52 p.m., there was what investigators are calling a rekindle event in a nearby gully. It's believed that smoldering material, likely fueled by severe wind, reignited and spread the fire. The investigation suggests that strong, erratic winds may have blown an undetected ember into a dry, overgrown gully.
That's quite a turn of events. Were there any other factors that contributed to the fire's spread?
Yes, Grace. The investigation also raised the possibility that a bulldozer operator, who was helping to contain the initial blaze, may have unknowingly pushed smoldering debris into the gully, potentially contributing to the rekindling. It's important to note that the investigation categorized the blaze as an accidental incident and did not assign blame to any specific person or entity.
I see. Now, Chloe, we know that the aftermath of this tragedy has been extensive. What can you tell us about the legal and financial repercussions?
Well, Grace, according to reporting from the Los Angeles Times, a tentative $4 billion settlement has been reached involving Hawaiian Electric, Maui County, the state of Hawaii, and other parties. However, this settlement is still pending approval from the Hawaii Supreme Court. Additionally, thousands of Lahaina residents have filed lawsuits against various parties, with defendants pointing fingers at each other over responsibility for the fire.
That's certainly a complex legal situation. Has there been any progress in terms of preventing future tragedies like this?
There have been some efforts, Grace. Maui Fire Chief Brad Ventura has announced plans to increase fire code inspections and work with large landowners to maintain properties and prevent future fire hazards. The properties where the fire originated have reportedly been better maintained since the incident.
That's good to hear. What about improvements to emergency response systems?
That's an important point, Grace. While several improvements to emergency alert systems and evacuation procedures have been proposed or are under consideration, it's worth noting that as of today, October 3, 2024, few specific changes have actually been implemented. Ongoing efforts include reviews of alert systems, proposed infrastructure improvements, and investigations to identify areas for improvement in emergency response protocols.
It sounds like there's still a lot of work to be done. Chloe, thank you for bringing us up to date on this important story.
You're welcome, Grace. It's clear that this tragedy has highlighted the need for enhanced fire prevention measures, improved emergency communication systems, and better coordination among various agencies during disasters. As investigations continue and recommendations are made, we can expect more concrete changes to be implemented to improve public safety and prevent future tragedies of this magnitude.
Thank you again, Chloe, for that comprehensive report. Here are some other headlines. A road crash in southern Turkey has resulted in at least 10 deaths. Details are still emerging about this tragic incident. 5 Chinese nationals, former University of Michigan students, have been charged with lying and attempting to cover up a midnight visit to Camp Grayling, a U.S. military site in Michigan, in August 2023. The charges come over a year after the incident. The U.S. has expanded its ban on imports from China over forced labor allegations. New measures target a Chinese steel manufacturer and an artificial sweetener producer, marking the first time these industries have been included under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. Hurricane Kirk, forming in the central Atlantic, is expected to cause dangerous surf conditions along the U.S. East Coast this weekend. Despite not making direct landfall, beachgoers are warned of life-threatening rip currents and elevated swells. South Korea is grappling with a deepfake pornography crisis, disproportionately affecting women and girls. The number of reported cases has risen dramatically, with many victims being minors. The issue is exacerbating gender conflicts and highlighting systemic misogyny in the country. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is pushing forward with a global temple building boom, despite facing local resistance in some areas. In Las Vegas, residents are concerned about a newly approved temple's impact on their dark sky surroundings. The church has announced or begun construction on numerous temples worldwide since 2018. We're turning our attention now to the global shipping industry, a crucial component of international trade. Joining us to discuss the current state of maritime shipping and its environmental impact is our business reporter, Ethan. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you, Grace. It's a pleasure to be here to discuss this important topic.
Let's start with the basics. Can you explain what containerization is and why it's so important?
Certainly, Grace. Containerization is a system that uses standardized shipping containers to transport goods across various modes of transportation: ships, trucks, and trains. These containers are typically the size of tractor-trailers and have revolutionized international trade by improving efficiency and security in the global supply chain.
That's fascinating. How significant is maritime shipping in global trade?
It's incredibly significant, Grace. Maritime shipping handles over 90% of cross-border cargo transportation. Large container ships and other cargo vessels transport vast amounts of raw materials, parts, and finished products between international suppliers, manufacturers, and final destinations.
With such a large role in global trade, what kind of environmental impact does maritime shipping have?
While maritime shipping is efficient, it does have significant environmental implications. Traditionally, container ships burn large amounts of bunker fuel, which is a low-grade fuel with high sulfur content. This contributes substantially to greenhouse gas emissions.
That sounds concerning. Are there any efforts being made to address this environmental impact?
Yes, there are, Grace. The industry is making significant strides in reducing its environmental footprint through various technological innovations. For instance, there's a push towards decarbonization and the use of alternative fuels like hydrogen, biofuels, ammonia, and electrofuels. These alternatives aim to reduce emissions significantly.
That's encouraging to hear. Are there any other technological innovations being implemented?
Absolutely. The industry is adopting energy-efficient technologies like optimized hull forms and air lubrication systems. There's also a growing use of digitalization and data analytics to improve operational efficiency. Internet of Things, IoT devices, are being deployed to monitor real-time data on factors like fuel consumption and engine performance.
It sounds like there's a lot of innovation happening. Are there any regulatory measures in place to support these efforts?
Yes, there are. The International Maritime Organization, or IMO, has set ambitious targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from shipping. They aim for at least a 40% reduction by 2030 and a 70% reduction by 2050, with the ultimate goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2050.
Those are indeed ambitious targets. Have any of these measures shown results yet?
They have. The IMO implemented a global ship fuel sulfur limit in 2020, which has already reduced sulfur oxide emissions by 78% and particulate matter emissions by 49%.
That's impressive progress. Are there any challenges still facing the industry in terms of sustainability?
Yes, there are several challenges. The growing demand for global trade poses difficulties in overall emissions reduction. The transition to more sustainable fuels faces obstacles such as higher costs and the need for infrastructure development. Additionally, while alternative fuel technologies offer significant emissions reductions, they're not entirely carbon neutral when considering their full life cycle emissions.
It seems like the industry is at a critical juncture. What's the outlook for the future?
You're right, Grace. The maritime shipping industry is indeed at a critical point, balancing the demands of global trade with the urgent need for environmental sustainability. While significant progress has been made, continued innovation, investment, and international cooperation will be crucial to achieving a truly sustainable future for maritime shipping.
Thank you, Ethan, for this comprehensive overview of the maritime shipping industry and its environmental challenges. It's clear that this is a complex issue with far-reaching implications for global trade and the environment.
You're welcome, Grace. It's an important topic that affects us all, and it will be interesting to see how the industry evolves in the coming years.
Indeed, it will. Thanks again for your insights, Ethan. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexandra King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.